Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is calling for humane policies and debt relief for developing countries at the ongoing Future Investment Summit taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Speaking at the 5th edition of the summit, Mr. Buhari attributes growing social unrest to inequalities and unfair policies that exclude majority from opportunities for participation. He wants world leaders and global investors to give priority to inclusive and friendly policies. The president says his administration will keep encouraging public and private initiatives that increase investments in health, education, youth empowerment, and poverty eradication.
This is why we in Nigeria, we believe that public and private partnership should focus on increasing investments in health, education, capacity building, youth empowerment, gender equality, poverty eradication, climate change, and food security. We are quick to realize that long-term peace and stability of our country is dependent on having inclusive and humane policies. Nigeria is Africa's largest economy and most populous nation. Our economic reforms, which focus on humane investments, are ideal for investors looking to have profitable returns while positively impacting the citizenry. Infrastructure investment represents significant potential for investors in Nigeria. We have opportunities in seaports, rail, toll roads, real estate, renewable energy, and many others. We have created several institutions that are available to co-invest with you in Nigeria as we strive to build resilience towards a sustainable economy in our various countries. Let us not forget the negative impact of climate change on our efforts to achieve this goal. Nigeria and many other countries in Africa are already facing the challenges posed by climate change. I hope and pray that this forum will rise to the challenge in the interest of durable peace and sustainable development.
Meanwhile, as the 27th National Nigerian Economic Summit comes to a close, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning says the federal government would cater for subsidy on petrol in the first 6 months of 2022. Arise correspondent Amaka Ode tells us more.
The 27th Nigerian Economic Summit comes to a close with new recommendations on how to improve the Nigerian economy. However, making the headlines is the announcement that provisions has been made for petroleum subsidy for the first 6 months of 2022. In 7 months this year, petrol subsidy payments gulped 714 billion naira, which reduced the monthly revenue accruing to the Federation account. Now, with the Petroleum Industry Act in place, the regulation of the downstream oil and gas sector will start by July 2022.
So when we're doing the 2022 budget, we made the assumption that the terms of the PRA will kick in from July 2022. And because we've been incurring fuel subsidy, and in 2020 and 2021, we didn't have the provision, but we're incurring the cost anyway, we decided to make the provision from January to June 2022 in the proposed budget. And that is to say that we expect that from July that we will not be incurring fuel subsidies.
Organizers roll out the other recommendations and the implementation plans.
Across different segments of the country and taking advantages of the opportunity presented by digital to provide opportunities for not just for educational development but for lives and livelihoods, and also the opportunities that digital also uses to impact in other areas like health. Within the areas of national security, we talked and there was a strong emphasis on the role of national security in overall creating an overall quality of life and how it also impacts economic development as a whole. So we talked about the importance of investing and having very strong citizen engagement to improve the governance process and policy engagement. We talked about working and engaging with marginalized groups across the country. And really investing in the knowledge and the engagement required to have a long-term view in looking at our security issues across all levels and dimensions.
For 2 days, the federal government and the stakeholders held meetings with most of the recommendations tilting towards more private-public partnership. Today, the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation signed an agreement with the Ike Imokwede Foundation to formally mark their collaboration to digitalize the work of federal civil service with the implementation of an enterprise content management solution, which is witnessed by the Vice President.
Enunciating the very essence of private-public partnership. Thank you. These are the men and women driving the very nerve center.
While admitting that the implementation of the recommendations from the past Nigerian Economic Summit have been slow, organizers are hopeful it will get better.
In the 26 years that we've been recommending, we're not as happy as we would like to be as to the trajectory of development. But we're actually quite happy. We have to be realistic. Each government comes to power with its own manifesto. And they start by implementing the process of their manifesto. Think tanks and advocacy groups like us, who are in partnership with government, what we do is look at the manifesto and say, oh, maybe you can do things this way. But we also are suggesting that maybe you can do things this way. But the government, the buck stops on the table of the government.
Right, Tundu, a lot to unpack there. All about investment.
Yeah. What I thought, I'll start with the first story that you shared, President Muhammadu Buhari's speech, which I thought was very good. He was addressing what's known as Davos in the desert, and he was really on message. He was really selling Nigeria to the attendees, and he did a great job of it. And talking about, he was on theme as well. Investing in humanity is the theme, so that's what his whole speech was about, talking about how we invest in humanity in Nigeria under his administration, and also on a global level, calling for debt relief, which is an investment in humanity. I think that's very important because, you know, the debt suspension initiative of the G20 countries is coming to an end. This year. It's going to expire this year. So that's a bit of a disaster. And for me, that didn't even go far enough. It's essentially a moratorium. We actually need cancellation, debt forgiveness. So I think it's important that he continues to make that call. And he has, you know, backing from other countries, other low-income developing countries. He also has backing from the World Bank. So I thought that was a really important call to make and to stress. But he did mention in his address the painful decisions that his government has to make, which dovetails neatly with the second story that you shared about fuel subsidy. I mean, we've talked about this several times. We cannot continue like this. So this is also another positive development. So we're looking to July 2022 now for an end to that. Painful, but necessary.
Dr. Abati?
Okay, on subsidy, we made the point again and again on this program, and even many of our guests have made a point about how there is some kind of lack of clarity with regard to the subsidy regime in Nigeria, and how much of it is really subsidy and how much of it is, can be classified under leakages and wastages. So it's interesting to find that the issue came up again at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. But beyond that is the issue of funding. Who is going to fund that subsidy? Where is it going to come from? The funds come from? Are we going to be using borrowed funds to fund the petroleum subsidy? And at what point, really, will Nigeria take a decisive decision in terms of ensuring efficiency, particularly now that we have a completely new framework for the oil and gas sector? Now, the National Economic Summit Group itself, meets, to discuss issues of interest. Where is that alignment between what the Economic Summit Group, recommends and policy formulations in Nigeria? Because, the National Economic Summit Group, every time it meets, comes up with concrete policy recommendations. Who listens to them? Is the NESG now, more of a talk shop rather than a body that impacts meaningfully on policy implementation in Nigeria, particularly with regard to the drivers of economic growth. But as a place where people can ventilate ideas and make recommendations, it's an excellent platform. But I would like to see better alignment between private sector in terms of their recommendations and input into policy processes and government listening to some of the outcomes of such a strategic forum like that. Now, on the question of President Buhari's statement at the Future Investment Summit in Riyadh, well, yes, he used the platform to sell Nigeria and his administration in terms of how the government of Nigeria has been investing in humanity in alignment, in line with the theme of that particular summit. And he was using that by detailing opportunities in Nigeria and what his government has done in terms of welfare programs, in terms of investment in agriculture, in terms of providing social investment opportunities for the people of Nigeria. All of this saying that, look, Nigeria is a good investment destination. And I think that's in order. It's good to sell Nigeria. But many Nigerians will probably query the details of his claims, both in terms of what the government has been able to do for the population and the actual environment in the country. But that's another issue entirely. The most significant thing is his request for debt relief. Now, by the way, Nigeria is not part of the debt service suspension initiative by the Bretton Woods institutions and the G20 countries. World Bank and IMF had given debt relief of about $4 billion to about 40 countries, low and middle income countries, but Nigeria is not on that list. Perhaps because 41% of Nigeria's debt stock is owed to private investors and particularly bond holders. So when you find that in the rest of the world, people are saying debt relief for countries that are impacted by COVID. Even before COVID, in 2020, the debt to GNI ratio of many of these low and middle income countries was over 40%. So COVID-19 made it worse. So you have the World Bank, the IMF, even the president of France saying that, look, you have to help these countries so that they will be able to survive. And this is not the first time that President Buhari is making this request. He did so in May in France during the Financing Africa Summit. He made the same claim. But the question, however, is, well, you are borrowing, you keep borrowing, and yet you are asking for debt relief, or is it debt cancellation that some other countries are asking for? And there are Nigerians who hold the view that, look, that request may well be debt on arrival, because the IMF and the World Bank, apart from saying we'll give debt relief, we have this debt service suspension initiative. The greater emphasis is on transparency and accountability. So it's not as if it's an automatic thing. But on the basic principles of the president's presentation in France in May, and also now in Riyadh, what he's talking about, it's about global solidarity. It's about ensuring that some countries who are facing, economic despair, do not necessarily fail, and that the rest of the world, the rich countries of the world, should look at how these countries can be helped. But the unanswered question is, what are these low to middle income countries themselves? What are they doing to help themselves? But in terms of the appeal, yes, at the level of principle, it's in order. You may not argue with that. But when you contextualize it further, there may be other questions that should be of interest.
I'm more interested in what the G20 is doing and the fact that they're not doing nearly enough. Yes, like you observed, it's not as easy as it was a few decades ago to talk about debt forgiveness or debt relief. It's been complicated by factors that you named, like bonds and private investors. But a lot more should be done. It's not nearly enough. I'm sorry, it's just scratching the surface.
Thank you so much, Chunda and Dr. Bati. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson join us. This tomorrow also will give us updates on COVID-19 pandemic, and we'll talk some business with Michael Wilson across the globe. Stay with us, O'Brien.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Going on now to Global Business Update. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Asia Pacific shares actually lower slightly. Hong Kong, mainly Tencent and Alibaba down quite a bit this morning. Hang Seng down about 3%. The Hang Seng Tech rather down about 3%. The broader Hang Seng Index about 1.5% down actually. Mainland China stocks also down. However, and this is actually quite a big however. tech stocks apparently in China are beginning to rebound as regulatory fears are subsiding slightly. And also, let's not forget this, industrial profits, according to official figures, up 16.3% in China year on year. However, there's the gloomy aspect of this as well. Number one, the rise in COVID-19 cases in China. Also, the US has withdrawn the China Telecom's US license, that's according to the Global Times, and China has actually halted its China-Europe freight trains because of massive border congestion at the moment. Hong Kong coal futures actually slightly higher. So basically, the fundamentals are sort of providing a few headwinds to China's success as we speak. However, and this again is another important one, investors apparently are pouring money into China's startups despite the regulatory crackdown. What they're doing is they're centering on particular sectors like health tech, hardware, and consumer market solutions. Those sort of sectors are actually attracting a lot of venture capital. And the fact is, of course, that China needs foreign capital. However, once again, it's a 50% this, 50% that kind of day to day. China, there could be more defaults as far as Chinese developers are concerned, but analysts say those kind of troubles have not yet spilt over into broader markets. Well, we'll obviously wait to see about that. Developers could go bust, they could merge, they could get government help. That's what we're hearing out of China from analysts in that country. Let's go to the United States and take a recap there. Futures are flat, but once again, another record on the Dow last night. NASDAQ Composite gained 0.06. Facebook weighed a bit heavily for all those reasons we were talking about yesterday, but Microsoft and Alphabet up 2%. Microsoft earnings $2.27 a share, $2.27 a share, as opposed to $2.07 a share, so that's better. And the same with Alphabet as well. Earnings per share up much more than analysts have predicted, up to about $27 earnings per share, as opposed to 23 predicted. The fact is that the momentum of buying consumer goods has started again, and the people are beginning to realise they can possibly cope with surging costs. We'll see about that, but that's the message this morning. And just a final note about Robinhood. You remember that that sort of that app that allows people to share cryptocurrencies? That's fallen off very, very slightly. Plans from the US Democrats about tax rises, headed by Elizabeth Warren and Angus King. Any companies with over $1 billion in profits will be paying back 15% of those profits. This is to help fund, they're hoping, this big Biden infrastructure bill and building back better initiative. That's going to cost $3.5 trillion. They're still arguing about that. They hope that some kind of tax like this will help it. If you look at Amazon, for example, it's only paying an average 4.3% corporation tax on profits of $45 billion. That's worldwide, of course. US corporate tax rate is at 21%. So you draw your own conclusions there. As far as Europe's concerned, just a quick one on Deutsche Bank. It's had falling revenues. One would expect that kind of thing, and what's Europe is going, or European Union is going through at the moment. But it's still managed to beat expectations and reported the third consecutive quarter of profit, net income of 194 million euros. Okay, so the big stuff here, of course, is today's budget, which we've been talking about. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, Finance Minister, has said he's committed to fiscal discipline. He's going to prepare the economy for its post-COVID status, whatever that may be. They've already leaked a lot of proposals, much to the anger of many in the House of Commons, actually, because what is left to speak about in the House of Commons around about midday today? Well, we'll hear that. UK consumers are still buying. The likes of Reckitt Benckiser, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, all those are consumer-facing companies. They're actually not doing too badly. Wage rises. This is a terrible one for anybody who enjoys the pub. I, of course, can't comment on this. Add 30 pence to a pint, apparently. The sort of rise in the minimum wage that the Chancellor is going to proposing, the rising in the national living wage of £9.50 an hour. As far as commodities are concerned, then oil's consolidation continues. it's no bad thing. It's we're looking at roughly about $84 a barrel, and gold has retreated. It sort of climbed over that level of $1,800 an ounce, but it didn't manage to maintain that, and it's actually falling back a little. I'm looking at 1793.40 an ounce as we speak. That's the global view.
All right, Michael, real quickly, two things. Number one, let's go to America about this, tax deal, trying to get money to pay for this Biden plan. Isn't it time for Biden to come clean and say he cannot get those numbers to pay for that? Because obviously, even with the taxes, it doesn't still add up to that 3.5 trillion he wants to take. So there's no possible way he's going to pay for that. That's one. Number two, this is a recurrent cycle. Rishi Sunak is upset now about budget leaks in the UK, but isn't that an indication that things are not just going well in the UK? And the Chancellor of the Exchequer is not on top of things. Because when you even look at the budget, leaves much to be desired, little or nothing to do. There's a lot of debt compounded by coronavirus. The economic outlook is not exciting. Some projects have been called up. Take, for instance, I don't know how the UK will pay for the Hinkley power plant project that China has pulled out from in Somerset. There are many projects around. What is really happening to the UK economy?
As far as the budget's concerned, actually what's happening is the forecast for the economy are slightly better than people had thought. So he looks like he will not only do what he says he's going to do, it's been heavily leaked and so on, extra public spending, but also have a sort of an emergency rainy day fund as well. So he will talk up what's actually going on. Who knows what's behind the official figures? All chancellors talk up what they're doing for the economy, and this one is no exception. I think really the test of this is going to be how people react coming up with the holiday season. It's not that far away, it's only like 3 months away, how they will react to higher prices and so on. At the moment, as I was saying this morning, consumer goods facing companies are finding that people are coping with rising prices. I think that demand will actually fall off, and I think that growth will fall off as well. That's the key. I'll be looking, as I said to you yesterday and the day before, at this budget, where's the growth coming from? What are entrepreneurs being tempted to do? Is he continuing to create the sort of atmosphere in which entrepreneurs and business, therefore, and thus taxes from those businesses can thrive? That's the key to it. We'll see after this afternoon. Maybe we'll be talking about this tomorrow. As far as the United States is concerned, I think Joe Biden's having a very, very tough time pushing this huge build for better bill through. And no surprise that the Democrats, they won't find many people wanting to disagree when you look at Amazon paying such a small amount in corporation tax universally, when the rate of corporation tax is 21% in the United States. I don't think there's going to be any tears shed for big tech. I suspect there'll be more moves on that. Is Biden popular? Does he need to be popular to push this through? I think he does. I think he needs the consent of the public, because the margins, as you know, are so thin. Has he got that? I don't think he has. But again, I'm reading things that are very anti-Biden in this country, saying that actually he's losing public support, and it started with that rather ignominious withdrawal from Afghanistan last month. There are various things going on, but you can see how the Democrats have now got the wind in their fur, and they're thinking, good heavens, yes, we can actually do something. Let's hit big tech where it hurts, and everybody will love us. I think they're onto something.
Right. So is it a question of leaks, or is the Treasury briefing journalists? Because I was reading how there was a Labour Chancellor, Hugh Dalton, in 1947, who had to resign for briefing a journalist. And look at Rishi Sunak today. I guess Hugh Dalton was ahead of his time, because it seems acceptable for the most part, apart from obviously the Speaker of the House of Commons lambasting him. But is today's budget announcement going to be an anticlimax, because there have been such a rush of announcements beforehand? Is that why everybody's banging on about his socks and sandals, achingly trendy Palm Angels look?
All right, I'm going to tell you a story, and you'll like this one. So there was a chancellor called Kenneth Clarke, and he was out having his favourite curry. He used to go for a curry before the budget. I'm talking about mid-80s, I think it probably was. Anyway, there he is eating his curry. One of the advisors rushes in looking really flustered and says, the Daily Mirror, that's one of our newspapers, has got hold of the details of the budget. And Ken Clarke said, so what? and went ahead with his supper and said, fine, okay, they've got the details of it. I'll alter a few things and it'll make it look as though... Now, that's an apocryphal story. I also know an analyst friend of mine who was given the budget details and left them on the tube. I mean, so it just goes on. There used to be this thing called purdah, which, in other words, it's an Indian term, which you probably know. I'm sure you know, which means that you say nothing. You go into this thing of, we're going to keep everything for the budget speech. Now, it's very, very different. I mean, social media, journalists getting briefed and so on. What's he saving? I think there'll be details of something else. We normally talk about what rabbit will he pull out of the hat, like a magician. I think it's this terribly old-fashioned stuff. But I think there will be details that we will be interested in. I think the growth forecast, the inflation forecast, the general kind of things are going to be very interesting indeed. I have my doubts about loads of money, as I said yesterday, being thrown into the public sector. I mean, this is what's going to happen. It's pointless doing those things unless you have complete control how that money is actually spent. And as it's my money, as it's taxpayers' money, I want to know that. And I'm not happy about that. And I think so we'll need some reassurance. That's what we're doing. Is this guy standing up and saying, look, I'm going to be fiscally responsible. I know when to spend, but I am looking after your money. And he won't be saying this, of course, but naturally he wants to be Prime Minister. I mean, this will be that sort of a budget.
Well, I think perhaps, the leaks may well be useful. It means that perhaps Rishi Sunak won't have to speak for almost 5 hours, as William Gladstone once did. But we still have to listen to what he has to say later today in terms of how he intends to provide that new age of optimism, for Britain. Well, I don't know whether you are optimistic or whether you will be optimistic after the budget speech today. But talking about optimism, Goldman Sachs, the chief economist, yesterday issued a research note in which he was talking about inflation. And it was a somewhat contrarian statement, assumptions, year-on-year assumptions from fourth quarter to the end of next year. And he was saying, basically, that inflation is going to decelerate and, we're going to have a better economic outlook. And all of this is based on better labor supply, increase in the making of semiconductors, and then, the end of port congestions, particularly in the United States. But while he's taking that position, other people are expressing concern about hyperinflation and the fact that prices continue to rise. Is this optimism well placed or misplaced? Will you say it's a possibility and that is correct?
Okay. Would you say that Goldman Sachs is in a position of talking itself up in all this and talking up financial services? I suspect it probably is. Does it make a load of money out of banks and asset management? Yes, it does. I've only ever taken notice of one Goldman Sachs economist, and she may well have disappeared completely now, but it was a woman called Abby Cohen, whom everybody used to listen to years ago, and she was absolutely right. I've got friends who are better economists in this country who are actually looking at things now, and their view is this, that yes, there are going to be problems. Yes, there's going to be inflation. Yes, there's going to be increase in the pandemic. Yes, there will be spikes of growth and there'll be spikes of failure as well. The difference is that we are actually now in a different world, and companies are much more energetic about supply chains. It's not happening straight away, and it won't happen tomorrow, and it won't happen by the end of the year. But what's happening is there are technological changes going on at the moment, which are quite extraordinary, which we won't know until we actually see them. Number two, as far as semiconductors are concerned, and we base our complete economy on these, just as most leading economies actually do. Are they being onshored, and are they about to be manufactured and not dependent on supply chains? Answer that question. Yes, they are. Will that happen in the United States? Yes, it will. Will it happen in this country? Yes, it will. Will it happen in Africa? Yes, it will. There's nothing magic about constructing them. The key is the tech. And at the moment, they're being massively turned out by countries like China and South Korea. But does China have the tech to do that? I don't think it does. So therefore, I think that the world is never as it seems. I wish Abby Cohen were around right now. I don't think she is anymore, but that was the one I used to trust all those years ago. The rest of them, I don't really understand how they hold down a job. But the world is changing.
Thank you very much, Michael Wilson.
All right,
Thank you.
Michael, that was a great shot. All right. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesuwa is here. Great to have you, Adesuwa, as always.
Good morning, Rufai. Good to see you. Good morning, Tundu. And good morning, Dr. Abati. Dr. Abati, I think I know what to get you for your next birthday. I'll get you a color palette. So that
Yes. And it's next month, Adesuwa.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Yes,
Thank
definitely. You. Great. Well, let's talk COVID. And Michael Wilson was right. China is beginning to see some cases of little compared to what we are seeing in other parts of the world, but the country is not taking any chances. They've had to lock down a city of 4 million people after recording 6 cases of COVID-19. We also know elsewhere, Eastern Europe is suffering and battling its worst COVID-19 outbreak so far since the pandemic. But let's take a look at the latest COVID data. Newly released figures show coronavirus has now infected over 244 million people and unfortunately killed 4.9 million people globally. Also, over 6.85 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines have been administered globally, and that's according to the latest data by the Johns Hopkins University. You should have that on your screen at the moment. Global vaccine inequity remains unchanged. More wealthier countries are expanding their vaccine coverage for their population to reach some level of safer levels of immunity, including inoculating children. And the U.S. has become the first country to authorize Pfizer COVID vaccine for children, younger children, aged 5 to 11. Let's look at data here in Nigeria. Latest COVID-19 data released figures shows 159 infections and no further deaths in the last 24 hours, bringing the total official fatalities in Nigeria since the pandemic to 2,884. That's Nigeria's outlook for today. There's been delayed release of data for COVID-19 vaccination across the country now for some days. We have no reasons given by the NPHCDA as to why this is so. But on your screen, the producers will give you the latest figures released by the NPHCDA. They are for the first and second phases of the coronavirus vaccination exercise in Nigeria. The country has fully vaccinated 2.6% of the targeted 70% of its over 200 million population, meaning that 2.6% of those 70% of the population have received 2 doses of the vaccine. Nigeria at the moment isn't considering booster shot, although we've had Lagos State mention something about booster shot earlier on in the month or last month. But it is no longer news that Nigeria, like many other low-income countries across the world, have been left behind and are failing to meet the WHO target to vaccinate citizens against this deadly virus. However, what is news is that there are growing efforts to attempt to close the gap. Again, the word for me there is attempt. The latest is coming from the African Union. The regional body yesterday announced that it intends to buy 110 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from Moderna in an arrangement brokered in part by the White House, the Biden administration. Now, these vaccines should be delivered starting by the end of this year. The U.S. again is facilitating the deal and is asking Moderna to defer some of the shots coming to America and instead sell to the African Union. A noble gesture, you might say. But it also comes on a day the German company BioNTech signed an agreement with the Rwandan government and Institut Pasteur de Dakar in Senegal on the construction of a first mRNA vaccine manufacturing facility in Africa. Now, in a statement released by BioNTech, construction is expected to begin in 2022. It says the plant will initially produce a production line with 50 million COVID-19 doses annual capacity. It comes actually days after, you would recall, young scientists in South Africa announced that they plan to produce mRNA COVID vaccines through reverse technology. Now to Brazil, where a committee of senators has voted to recommend criminal charges against the president for his handling of the pandemic. The Attorney General will now have 30 days to decide if President Bolsonaro should face charges, including crimes against humanity, which is one of the most serious of the several charges against him. They're saying that they're saying that a lot of the over 606,000 deaths in Brazil during this COVID-19 were totally needless, deaths, and they should have been presented. Finally, let me tell you that the WHO Emergency Committee of Experts have met since their last 3-month meeting to evaluate the pandemic, and their conclusion is that the COVID-19 crisis is far from over, despite progress being made through increased uptake of vaccines and therapeutics. They say the crisis should still be labeled a public health emergency of international concern. The 19-member body of experts is also calling for research into the next generation vaccines for long-term control of this pandemic. Guys.
All right, Adesua, there was a report that came out this morning that was talking about the fact that the world is poorly prepared for another pandemic. We're talking about lessons the other day. Adesua, we have not learnt anything. It is obvious. We have just learned how to fight with ourselves more and show the things that polarize us. It's just been about politics. My second point will be, I hope Jair Bolsonaro knows that this might be another Lavo Jato moment for him, like the car wash scandal, the Odebrecht scandal in Brazil then. Because what he has done is, with his own views, he has led to the destruction of lives of a lot of Brazilians. And I hope the investigative committee and everybody necessary to go through that process ensures that he faced the full wrath of the law. Thirdly, Adesua, I hear Rwanda, I hear Institut Pasteur in Senegal. I want to be hearing vaccine production sites in Lagos, in Ogbomosho, in Potiskum, in every part of Nigeria. We are big. We should be leading those conversations.
Yes. I agree with that, but I do think that this Bolsonaro case is going to be a lot worse than the car wash case, or maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. To piggyback on what you've just said, Rufai, the fact that we're going through this, and we will have another pandemic, this is not going to be the last one in human history, and we are so ill-prepared for the next time this happens is a problem. We also have to look at it. I mean, I'm not saying that those theories are correct, that the COVID-19 virus is a biological warfare act, but it just might be, and next time it might be. We also have to look at that. And it also has to be made an example to future leaders that you cannot do what Bolsonaro did. You cannot play the charlatan and have 600,000 of your people die. An example should be made of him for the next time, because like I said, there will be a next time. So we do have a chance where we might see him being docked in the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for his crimes against humanity, which that Senate committee is accusing him of. And I read comments from one of the governors in Brazil comparing him to Augusto Pinochet and Adolf Hitler. That is the level of egregious acts that he has committed, and he should be dealt with accordingly so that other people will learn, because we do need to learn. We cannot go through this as a world and not learn. People cannot just wake up and call a potentially deadly virus a little flu. People cannot just wake up and disdain mask mandates, disdain vaccination. And Bolsonaro has been a threat to humanity previously. You recall the wildfires in the Amazon, which he was just quite happily, going along with for the sake of the economy rather than the world that we all live in. So really, an example should be made of him. I hope that it is.
Well, the Brazilian Senate Committee voted 7-4, and the most aggressive members of that committee is a group called the G7 Senators in Brazil. The investigation of the president's handling of COVID-19 in Brazil took about 6 months, and now we have this 1,200-page report that has indicted Jair Bolsonaro for crimes against humanity that falls within the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, of the misuse of public funds, of charlatanism, of crime against the people of Brazil. But will anything come out of it? I doubt. Because it's not the first time that he's been indicted, by the Senate. Would there be impeachment proceedings against him by the House of Representatives, as some people are pushing for? Will it happen? Maybe not. Would the Prosecutor General, Augusto Agas, who is a direct appointee of Jair Bolsonaro, will he take action after the Senate presents the report to his office today? Maybe not. The only thing that we have heard from that Prosecutor General's office is that the report will be reviewed. But Agas, the Prosecutor General, is not just an appointee of President Jair Bolsonaro, he is also said to be covering him up, and that he has been doing so quite consistently. But there is no doubt in anyone's mind that Jair Bolsonaro is one of those leaders who had so far behaved very badly with regard to the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, including recommending hydroxychloroquine as a wonder drug that would, help, even when, scientists and the WHO had said, look, this is just using politics to mislead the people. And which brings me to politics. The next general elections in Brazil is in 2022. And there are persons who are saying this is all about politics. Bolsonaro himself has denied any wrongdoing. I don't believe him. I don't think many people within the international community believe him. But the funny part of it is that one person who is defending him and praising him and saying that he has done no wrong is former President Donald Trump of the United States, who says, no, Bolsonaro loves his people and is doing very well as the president of Brazil. Well, what should we expect from former President Donald Trump? After all, Bolsonaro is regarded as a Trump of the tropics. But the lesson that can be taken from this is that it discredits Jair Bolsonaro. And ahead of the election next year, his public rating has dropped significantly. And this may well, in public imagination and in terms of consequences, affect his political fortunes. As for Moderna, I think we should commend the United States that decided to allow, Africa to go, ahead on the queue, and 110 million doses, about 25 million to be provided before the end of this year. All that will help, according to Strive Masiyiwa, the African Union Special Envoy. If the thing is successful, if the deal goes through, Africa will be able to vaccinate up to about 450 million people fully by the middle of next year. It will still not have achieved the target of 70% full vaccination, but it will be a significant improvement in terms of most of our countries just slightly above 5% vaccination. But if you have this supply, then of course that will help a lot. You still have the COVAX supplied. That's different. And you still have the 500 million that the African Union had paid for from Pfizer. But what we would like to see is not just full vaccination, but the kind of development that we now have in Rwanda, where BioNTech, the partner of Pfizer, in producing the COVID vaccine, is now setting up a manufacturing facility, which will be ready by the middle of next year. It will create jobs for the people of Rwanda. It will provide technological know-how and transfer. It would also, enhance the profile of Rwanda as a country. And even more importantly, it's consistent with the strategy that had been defined by the WHO with regard to how the world can move forward in terms of vaccination. So I think it's a very good development, and BioNTech should be commended. More so, as they also have a partnership in Cape Town with a BioVac, producing, applying reverse engineering, as you referred to it earlier on. But I fully align myself with the position of Rufai Hosseini that, look, we would have loved to see that also in Nigeria. Research center, vaccine makers, making Nigeria a priority and coming here. More so as our president just spoke in Riyadh, and he's been inviting investments to come to Nigeria, where, according to him, we have an enabling environment. But who wants to come to Nigeria with our security challenges, with our power supply issues? But of course, we can't give up. I'm sure there are possibilities that Nigeria can also explore in this regard.
All right. Thank you so much, Adesua, for your time, as always.
Indeed.
For decades,
thank you, guys.
Affluent Nigerians have traveled abroad for medical care. Nigerians spend $1.2 billion on medical care abroad, which has fueled the mindset that foreign healthcare is by default better than Nigerian healthcare. but that could soon be a thing of the past. Arise correspondent Adefemi Akisonya takes a look at the state of medical tourism and how a new hospital seeks to reverse it and reverse the medical brain drain.
7 stories, 6 years, 1 dream. The Duchess International Hospital is set to revolutionize Nigeria's medical infrastructure. It just opened in the Ikeja area of Lagos, and at the commissioning ceremony, Nigerian Vice President Yemi Osinbajo commended the purpose-built hospital as having the potential of being among the world's best.
So we're here at the Duchess International Hospital. By both medical and aesthetic standards, comparable to the best hospitals in the world. And its proprietors proudly and deservedly brag, and I quote, that the mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism by delivering the highest standards of care using the most advanced technology and treatments to give you the fastest, most convenient access to the best medical expertise available anywhere in the world.
According to a survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers, 90% of its Nigerian respondents associate healthcare in the country with poor quality. That mindset isn't helped by the likes of the Nigerian president and other public figures openly travelling to the United Kingdom for medical care.
A place like the Duchess International Hospital is one solution to that. But the truth is that this country could do with 10 Duchess hospitals, and we still will not scratch the surface. It's a huge industry.
Nigeria's healthcare industry is worth 6.5 trillion naira. That's approximately $269 billion US. And if we look at how that money is spent, private healthcare takes the lion's share. Medical tourism is worth 600 billion naira annually. That's $1.2 billion US gone. That's because 60,000 Nigerians leave the country every year for medical care, most of them in search of specialist treatment in oncology, orthopedics, nephrology, or cardiology. And each of them spend approximately $20,000 US per trip. Reversing medical tourism is a key target of the Duchess International executive team, but an equally important task is reversing medical brain drain.
We are getting people over to Nigeria using this kind of facility, and I hope more and more Nigerians who were thinking of going abroad, scoring good marks, having good clinical acumen, if we can attract that kind of talent back into the country, I think it is going to be very good for the place. For Nigerians, yes, for international people, you won't have to go abroad any longer, because not only local talent, but also the way we will be able to draw international talent through telemedicine, through talking to different doctors in different countries. There are people from UK who would be supporting us in our telemedicine initiatives. There's Apollo from India, which will be supporting us in telemedicine. So any country that you would think of for going and establishing your clinical requirements or medical needs, all of that is going to be available here. There is no need absolutely to think beyond.
The Duchess International, funded by Access Bank, is a private hospital. It boasts state-of-the-art equipment and facilities, including a cath lab and a fully equipped eye clinic.
We attend to patients' eye care needs, ranging from giving them glasses, contact lenses, and then moving forward to doing surgeries for those that require the surgeries. We also have specialized equipment like the OCT machine, the fundus camera machine, and the perimetry machine, a whole lot of them. So what this means is that for everything that any patient requires in terms of eye care needs, we have them. We have the special machines to carry out the specialized tests and do complete diagnosis and treatment plans. And we have the ocular theaters where the patients undergo various surgeries like the cataract surgery, glaucoma surgeries. And we're even looking forward to having subspecialty areas in the eye field.
The 100-bed hospital delivers primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare across a range of specialties, not limited to surgery, emergency and intensive care, cardiothoracic, pediatric, obstetrics and gynecology, as well as breast care services. 100 beds, 5 operating theatres, as well as a range of ambulances. Hospitality has a key presence too. On the 6th floor of the hospital is the Duchess Harley Street practice, a service comprising the Royal London Clinic and Duchess Royal Suites, offering hotel-like privacy for in- and outpatients. Despite the obvious luxury, executives say the care on offer is affordable.
What we seek to do is to combine excellence in healthcare with a unique experience of hospitality. It's a royal standard in healthcare that we aim to provide our patients. At the same time, we are committed to access to affordable healthcare. And the layout of this place and the nature of the facilities and expertise on display mean that we're able to drive the sorts of efficiencies that will pass on those savings to patients.
Duchess International is the 15th hospital in the Reddington conglomerate. Its very presence seeks to end the mindset that foreign healthcare is better healthcare. The doctors, nurses and medical professionals at Duchess insist every patient in Nigeria is noble and treated like royalty. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Lagos.